No husband yet? Her ex mocked. He didn't know she'd married the most powerful billionaire in USA. Hi, my beautiful family. Welcome back to Mr. Peter Stories, the only place where your emotions are respected, your hearts are understood, and your voices truly matter. May the Almighty wrap every woman in a peace that softens every worry, a light that never dims, and a strength that rises even when the world grows heavy. You are the quiet miracle of every home, the warmth that keeps families alive, the patience that holds generations together, and the love that never stops giving. The world stands tall because a woman chooses to stand, to forgive, to carry, to heal. I pray your nights bring rest, your mornings bring hope, and your heart be protected from every pain that tries to reach it. May blessings follow your footsteps, joy fill your hands, and honor surround your name. You deserve gentleness, gratitude, and a lifetime of respect for everything you carry in silence. And my beautiful family, I see you watching the stories, but many of you don't like or comment anymore. Have you forgotten your brother, Mr. Peter? Or do you think I'm finished in your hearts? Tell me, what is the reason? Your voice matters. Your support is my strength. Write your comment, and I promise I will reply to each one of you. If your heart is true, like the video. If your love is real, write, I am with Mr. Peter. Years after Ricky Smith abandoned her without explanation, Marcy Day stood in her executive office overlooking Manhattan when her assistant announced his name in the reception area. The coffee cup in Marcy's hand didn't tremble. Her expression didn't change. She simply set down the cup with deliberate precision and pressed the intercom button with one manicured finger. Send him to conference room B. I'll be there in 10 minutes. Her assistant hesitated. Miss Day, he's here as a vendor. Should I have someone from procurement meet with him instead? No, I'll handle this personally. Marcy walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows that framed the Manhattan skyline. Somewhere in this city, the man who destroyed her was walking through her lobby, practicing his pitch, completely unaware that the woman he abandoned now controlled his professional fate. She caught her reflection in the glass. Tailored navy suit, natural hair styled in an elegant twist, diamond wedding band catching the afternoon light. The broken woman crying in an empty apartment years ago wouldn't recognize this version of herself. Good. She took the executive elevator down 2 floors. Conference room B was deliberately chosen, smaller than the executive suite, formal but not intimidating. She wanted him comfortable. Comfortable people revealed themselves. Ricky was studying the skyline through the windows when she entered. He turned, salesman's smile already in place, and extended his hand without really looking at her face. Ms. Day, Ricky Smith with Summit Consulting Solutions, thank you so much for taking this meeting. I know COO time is valuable. His hand hung in the air between them. Marcy let it hang for 3 seconds before shaking it with professional firmness. His palm was slightly damp, nervous. His cologne was different, cheaper than she remembered. The suit was off the rack but pressed carefully. His hairline had receded slightly. There were shadows under his eyes that hadn't been there before. Mr. Smith, please sit. She took the power position at the head of the table while he settled into the chair to her right. He opened his tablet with hands that weren't quite steady. I really appreciate this opportunity. Reed Industries is exactly the kind of forward-thinking company we specialize in supporting. Our consulting model focuses on operational efficiency and streamlining corporate processes to maximize. How did you get this meeting, Mr. Smith? The question stopped him mid-pitch. His smile faltered for a moment before reassembling itself. I went through your standard vendor inquiry process, submitted our proposal through the online portal last month. And you asked specifically to meet with me? Your procurement team suggested it. They said operational consulting would fall under your purview as COO. Marcy made a note on her tablet, though she already knew every detail of how his inquiry had crossed her desk. She'd made sure of it. Tell me about your company. Ricky's pitch was smooth, rehearsed, desperate around the edges. Summit Consulting Solutions was a few years old. Small client base, limited resources, competitive pricing that screamed financial pressure. He dropped names of companies she knew were struggling themselves. His entire presentation reeked of a man barely keeping his head above water. She let him talk, watched him perform, studied the way his jaw tightened when he mentioned budget flexibility, the way his fingers drummed against the table when he talked about timeline commitments, the slight crack in his voice when he emphasized how much this partnership would mean to his growing firm. Growing. What a generous word for drowning. "You're married, Mr. Smith?" The question clearly caught him off guard. His eyes flickered to her left hand, to her own wedding ring, then back to her face. "I am. Wife and 2 kids. They're my whole world." The lie came easily to him. She could see it in the way he straightened his shoulders, the practiced warmth that flooded his expression. "That's actually part of why this opportunity means so much. Building something stable for my family." Stable, another generous word. "Family is important," Marseille said quietly. "Commitment, loyalty, following through on promises." "Absolutely. Those values are actually foundational to how we approach client relationships. When we commit to a partnership, we're in it for the long term. We don't just walk away when things get challenging." The irony was so thick Marseille could taste it. She wondered if he heard himself, if somewhere in his selective memory he remembered the woman he'd walked away from without a backward glance, the promises he'd made and broken, the future he'd destroyed with his cowardice. "That's reassuring to hear." She tapped her tablet screen. "Your proposal mentions you've been in business for 3 years. What did you do before that?" "I was in corporate sales. Worked for a larger consulting firm, learned the industry, decided to strike out on my own." Bold move. What prompted that decision? For the first time, real emotion flickered across his face. Frustration, bitterness. "I wasn't being valued properly. Put in years of work, made other people wealthy, decided it was time to build something for myself." Marseille almost laughed. He'd rewritten his own history so thoroughly he actually believed it. She knew the truth. He'd been fired for falsifying expense reports and sleeping with a client's wife, but she let him have his fiction, for now. "And how's it going? Building your own thing?" The mask slipped for just a moment. She saw the exhaustion, the fear, the weight of bills and expectations and a life balanced on a knife's edge. "It's been challenging, but I'm a fighter. Always have been. I don't quit." Unless quitting meant abandoning someone who loved you. Then he was quite good at it. Marseille stood, signaling the end of the meeting. Ricky scrambled to his feet, hope and anxiety warring across his features. "Thank you for your time, Mr. Smith. We'll review your proposal and be in touch." "That's it?" The question escaped before he could stop it. "I mean, do you have any other questions? Timeline concerns? Budget parameters?" "We have everything we need." She walked him to the conference room door. He lingered in the doorway, clearly wanting to say more, to press harder, to secure something concrete. The desperation rolled off him in waves. "Ms. Day, I just want to emphasize how committed we are to excellence. This isn't just business for me. This is about building something meaningful, creating partnerships that last. Partnerships require trust, Mr. Smith, and trust requires proving yourself over time. Wouldn't you agree?" "Absolutely, and I'm ready to prove myself, whatever it takes." She smiled then, cold and sharp as broken glass. "I'll hold you to that." He extended his hand again. This time she took it immediately, held it just a moment too long, watched confusion flicker in his eyes as he tried to understand why this COO he'd never met seemed to be studying him so intently. "Someone will be in contact soon," she said, releasing his hand. She watched him walk down the hallway toward the elevators, shoulders back, trying to project confidence he clearly didn't feel. The elevator doors closed on his forced smile. Marseille returned to her office, closed the door, locked it. Then she walked to her desk and opened the bottom drawer where she kept a small lockbox. Inside was a single photograph, her and Ricky years ago before everything fell apart. His arm around her shoulders, her looking at him like he hung the moon, both of them young and stupid, and convinced their love could survive anything. She'd kept it all these years, not as a reminder of what she'd lost, but as a reminder of what she'd survived. Her phone buzzed. A text from Peter. "How did it go?" She typed back, "He didn't recognize me, not even a flicker. Good or bad?" "Perfect. It means he never really saw me at all, which makes what comes next even easier." "You're sure about this?" Marseille looked at the photograph one more time, then locked it away again. "He walked into my territory, into my world, into my company, without even knowing who I am. That's not coincidence. That's fate handing me exact what I need. Which is justice, on my terms, in my time." She deleted the message thread, then picked up her office phone and dialed an internal extension. "This is Marseille Day. I need you to flag the Summit Consulting Solutions proposal. Route it through the full approval process, but make sure it ends up back on my desk for final decision. And schedule a board presentation for them. Next month. Tell them we're very interested." She hung up and turned back to the windows. Somewhere in this city, Ricky Smith was celebrating, thinking his luck had finally turned, believing he'd impressed the right person at the right time. He had no idea his luck had just run out, and the right person had been waiting years for this moment. Chapter 2. The ghost of her past meets her present. Peter Reed didn't build an empire by being merciful, but when Marseille told him about the man who shattered her and vanished without a word, he saw something in her eyes he'd never seen before, cold, calculated fury that made his own ruthlessness look amateur. They sat in the private study of their penthouse that evening, city lights glittering below them like scattered diamonds. Prince was asleep in his room down the hall, his nightlight casting soft shadows. Peter poured them both whiskey, neat, the way they both preferred after difficult days. "Tell me what you want me to do," Peter said quietly. "I can have him destroyed by morning. One phone call. His company, his reputation, his marriage. All of it gone before sunrise." Marseille swirled the amber liquid in her glass. "I know you can. That's not the point." "Then what is the point?" "He looked right through me today, shook my hand, smiled that fake smile, talked about commitment and family and not walking away when things get hard. He didn't recognize me at all." "You've changed. It's been years." "No." Marseille's voice was sharp. "I haven't changed that much. My face is the same. My voice, the way I move. He didn't recognize me because he never really saw me in the first place. I was never real to him, just something convenient until I wasn't." Peter set down his glass and moved to sit beside her on the leather sofa. He took her hand, the one with his ring on it, and pressed it to his chest. "Tell me what happened. The real story. You've given me pieces over the years, but never everything." Marseille was quiet for a long moment. Then she began. "We met at a work conference, one of those networking events where everyone's trying too hard. He was charming, confident, made me laugh. We started dating. He said all the right things, talked about the future, about building a life together, about how he'd never met anyone like me." She paused, took a long sip of whiskey. "I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He was consistent, showed up, called when he said he would, met my friends, introduced me to his colleagues. For almost 2 years he was perfect. What changed? I don't know. That's the thing that still haunts me. There was no fight, no warning, no gradual distance. One day we were planning a vacation, talking about moving in together. The next day he was gone." Peter's jaw tightened. "Gone how?" "Ghosted. Completely. He stopped answering calls, blocked my number, moved out of his apartment without telling me, changed his email. When I went to his office, security said he didn't work there anymore. I tried reaching his friends. They claimed they didn't know anything, just vanished like I'd imagined the entire relationship." Jesus Christ. I thought I was losing my mind. Spent weeks wondering what I'd done wrong, replaying every conversation, every moment, looking for the thing that made him run. I called hospitals thinking maybe he was hurt, filed a missing person report. The police found him in 3 days, living 2 states over, new job, perfectly fine. He told them to tell me to stop contacting him. Peter pulled her closer. I'm going to destroy him. Not yet. Let me finish. Marseille's voice steadied. That's when I broke. Really broke. Lost my job because I couldn't function. Lost my apartment because I couldn't pay rent. Ended up on a friend's couch for 6 months, barely eating, barely sleeping. I was drowning and he didn't even care enough to throw me a rope. He just walked away like I was nothing. How did you get out of it? Rage. The word was simple, clean. One morning I woke up and realized I had 2 choices. Let his abandonment define me forever, or use it as fuel. So I chose fuel. Got a job as a receptionist at a tech startup, worked my way up, took night classes, lived on nothing, saved everything, built myself back piece by piece. And that startup was where we met. Where you were advising, yes. You saw something in me, gave me chances, pushed me to be better. You taught me that power isn't about being the loudest person in the room. It's about being the most prepared, the most strategic, the most patient. Peter smiled slightly. You were already all those things. I just gave you the platform. You gave me everything. A partnership that actually means something. A family. A son who will never wonder if his parents love him. A life built on trust and respect and real commitment. And now he's walked back into that life. Yes. Desperate and weak and completely unaware that the woman he destroyed is now the woman who controls his fate. Peter studied her face. What do you want, Marseille? Real talk. What will actually satisfy you? I don't want him dead. I don't want him physically hurt. I want something more precise. She finished her whiskey and set the glass down with quiet finality. I want him to understand what he took from me. I want him to feel what I felt, that helpless terror of having your entire world collapse while the person who caused it doesn't even care. I want him to beg, not because I'll say yes, but because he'll finally understand what begging means. That's not destruction, that's art. Exactly. Quick destruction is mercy. He doesn't deserve mercy. Peter was quiet for a moment, his strategic mind already working. What's your play? I give him the contract, make his company dependent on Reed Industries, let him think he's finally winning, let him get comfortable, grateful. Then I start pulling threads, slowly, carefully, until his entire world unravels and he finally realizes who's holding the scissors. That could take months. Good. He made me suffer for years. He can suffer for a few months. Peter stood and walked to his desk, pulling out a file folder. I had him investigated the moment you texted me his name. Want to know what I found? Tell me. He's married to Lauren Westbrook. Her family has money. Old money. They bankrolled his consulting firm as a wedding gift. But here's the interesting part. The company is failing. Not publicly yet, but the numbers don't lie. He's been burning through their capital trying to land major clients. This Reed Industries contract isn't just an opportunity for him, it's a lifeline. Marseille felt something cold and satisfied settle in her chest. How long until he goes under without it? 6 months, maybe less. He's leveraged everything. Perfect. Give him the lifeline. Let him grab it with both hands. Make him completely dependent on it. And then? Then I start asking him to reach higher, stretch further, commit more, until he's so overextended that when I let go he doesn't just fall, he plummets. Peter returned to the sofa, handed her the file. You're playing a dangerous game. If he figures out who you are before you're ready, he won't. You said it yourself, I've changed. Different name, different position, different life. And he's so desperate he's not looking closely. He's seeing what he wants to see, a potential client with deep pockets. Nothing more. What if he remembers anyway? Then I adapt. But I don't think he will. People like Ricky only remember what matters to them. And I never mattered. I was just a placeholder until something better came along. Peter pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. You matter to me. You matter to Prince. You matter to every person in this company who depends on your leadership. I know. That's why I can do this, because I'm not that broken girl anymore. I'm not fighting from a place of weakness. I'm fighting from a position of absolute power, and he has no idea what's coming. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, the city sounds muted through the penthouse windows. Then Peter spoke again. "When do you want to move forward?" "Set up the board presentation for next month. Let him prepare. Let him stress. Let him put everything into impressing us. Then we'll make our decision." "You mean you'll make your decision?" "No, we'll make it. This affects the company. I won't let personal vendetta damage what we've built. The company can absorb any risk from this, you know that. Still, I need to know you're with me on this, all the way, because once we start, we can't stop halfway." Peter took both her hands in his. "I watched you build yourself from nothing, saw you turn pain into power. If you want to make him understand what that cost you, I'm with you, every step." Marseille looked into his eyes and saw the truth there. Unwavering support, complete trust. The kind of partnership she'd thought was fiction until she met him. "Thank you," she whispered. "Don't thank me. Just promise me one thing." "What?" "Don't lose yourself in this. Revenge can consume you if you're not careful. I need you to stay the woman I love, the mother Prince adores, the leader this company needs. I promise. This isn't about destroying myself. It's about reclaiming the pieces of me he stole." Peter nodded slowly. "Then let's begin." Marseille opened the investigation file and started reading. Every detail of Ricky's life laid bare. Financial troubles, marriage problems, business failures. Each piece of information was a weapon she could use, and she intended to use them all. Her phone buzzed with an email notification. Summit Consulting Solutions had already followed up, thanking her for the meeting, reiterating their commitment to excellence. She forwarded it to her assistant with simple instructions. "Schedule their board presentation. Make sure they have everything they need to prepare. I want them comfortable." Comfortable prey was easier to trap, and Ricky Smith had just walked into the most elaborate trap of his life, completely unaware that the hunter was someone he'd left for dead years ago. Marseille Day was about to teach him that some ghosts don't just haunt, they hunt. Chapter 3. The Performance. Ricky Smith practiced his pitch relentlessly, but nothing could stop his hands from shaking as he stood outside the Reed Industries boardroom, knowing this single hour would determine whether his company survived or collapsed into ruin. The executive floor made you feel small by design. Polished marble reflected his nervous face back at him. Original artwork worth more than his house lined the walls. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the city sprawling below, a reminder of exactly how far you could fall. "Mr. Smith," a young assistant materialized. "They're ready for you." The boardroom felt like a courtroom. 20 chairs circled a table that could seat a summit. 16 were filled with executives who could buy his entire life with pocket change. Peter Reed sat at the head, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, and beside him, impossibly calm, sat Marseille Day. She'd dressed for war today, hair severe, suit darker than midnight. When Ricky entered, she didn't smile, didn't acknowledge him, just gestured to the presentation screen. "Begin." One word, a command, not a request. Ricky's mouth tasted like copper as he connected his laptop. His slides appeared on the massive screen, suddenly looking amateurish in this room of power. Summit Consulting Solutions specializes in operational transformation for rapidly growing companies. We focus on process optimization, team efficiency, and scalable systems that maximize. "Companies our size," Peter Reed interrupted. "You've worked with organizations at our level?" The question came faster than Ricky expected. "Similar complexity, yes. The principles scale across." "Name one." A woman executive, ice in her voice. "Grandview Technologies. We help them." "Grandview is bankrupt." The woman didn't blink. "Filed 8 months ago." Ricky felt his prepared speech crumbling. "That was separate from our work. Their funding collapsed." "What about North Star Solutions?" Another executive. "Also defunct." "Market conditions. So your specialty is optimizing companies right before they die?" The question drew blood. "Interesting business model. We can't control external factors." "Fair?" Marseille's voice sliced through the room like winter wind. You want to talk about fair, Mr. Smith? Your results are a graveyard. That's not unfair criticism. That's just counting bodies. The room turned predatory. 16 sets of eyes watching him bleed out. Those situations were complicated, Ricky said, hearing the weakness in his own voice. Multiple variables. Either you deliver results or you don't. Peter Reed's quiet words carried more weight than shouting. You can't claim credit for improvements, then blame external forces for failures. Pick one. Ricky abandoned his script, survival instinct kicking in. You're absolutely right. My track record is flawed, but that's precisely why this would work. He met their skepticism head-on. You're not fragile like my previous clients. You're profitable, stable, growing. You don't need rescue. You need refinement. That's where I excel, taking strength and amplifying it. Something flickered in Marseille's expression. Interest? Amusement? He couldn't tell. Your team, Peter said. How many? 4 currently, but we scale through strategic contractor partnerships. So we'd trust our operations to temporary help? Marseille's eyebrow arched. Contractors with no loyalty, no investment in our success? You'd trust me. I'm accountable for every outcome, every failure, every success. You. Marseille leaned forward. A consultant whose clients keep dying. That's your pitch? Ricky met her eyes. Something about her gaze made his skin crawl, like she was seeing through him to something he'd forgotten. Yes, me. Because I've learned what kills companies. Because I'm starving in a way established firms aren't. This isn't just another contract to me, it's everything. And hungry people fight differently than comfortable ones. Desperation masquerading as dedication, someone muttered. Call it what you want. But ask yourself, who works harder? The consultant with 20 clients? Or the one who knows losing you means losing everything? Silence. Ricky could hear his own heartbeat in his ears. Then Marseille spoke, tone suddenly conversational. You mentioned family before, wife and children. The shift confused him. Yes, Lauren. 2 kids. They're my whole world. Your whole world. Marseille tasted the words slowly. Interesting claim for a man whose choices keep putting them at risk. I'm building a future for them. Are you? Your company is failing. Your desperation is visible. You've gambled their security on your ego. Her words landed like punches. A man who truly loves his family protects them, finds stable ground. He doesn't drag them into free fall and call it ambition. Sometimes building something meaningful requires risk, and sometimes risk is just cowardice wearing a better suit. Marseille stood abruptly. Thank you, Mr. Smith. We have everything we need. Wait. The timeline. Implementation strategy. We said we have everything. She gathered her materials with surgical precision. Someone will contact you. The executives rose like a coordinated machine. Conversations started. The meeting dissolved. Ricky stood frozen while his laptop glowed uselessly behind him, slides no one had cared to see. Peter Reed paused. You did better than most. Did I? Bitterness leaked through. You admitted weakness, rare quality. Peter glanced toward Marseille. Whether it's enough is her decision, not mine. He left Ricky to pack his failure alone. The elevator descent felt like falling from heaven back to hell. His phone rang before he hit the street. Lauren. Well? They tore me apart. So it's over. Flat. Accusatory. They didn't say no. Ricky, my father wants his money back. The company is drowning. We're behind on everything. This is humiliating. I'm doing everything. Are you? Because it looks like you're watching everything burn while making speeches about ambition. She hung up. Ricky stood on the sidewalk, invisible among crowds of people who had direction, purpose, answers. His phone buzzed, unknown number. Mr. Smith, Ms. Day's office. She'd like a follow-up meeting tomorrow. 2 o'clock. Conference room B. His heart stopped. I'll be there. Come alone. The line died. Ricky stared at his phone, mind racing. They'd demolished him, exposed every weakness, dismissed him like trash. but they'd called him back, which meant something. Maybe desperation was currency after all. He had no idea that desperation was exactly what she wanted, that every word had been calculated, that someone who remembered how to break him was now conducting him like a symphony, and the music was just beginning. Chapter 4. The Golden Handcuffs. 3 months after landing the Reed Industries contract, Ricky Smith finally felt like his life was turning around, until his wife Lauren found the photograph of him and Marcy at the client appreciation dinner, and his carefully rebuilt world began showing cracks. The contract had been everything Ricky needed, large enough to stabilize Summit Consulting Solutions, prestigious enough to attract other clients, consistent enough to stop the bleeding that had been draining his company dry. Lauren's father had stopped making pointed comments at family dinners. The private school had stopped sending reminder notices. Ricky could sleep through the night again without waking in a panic about bankruptcy. But something about the Reed Industries account made him uneasy in ways he couldn't articulate. It started small. Marcy Day requesting weekly check-ins instead of monthly reviews. Her insistence on approving every recommendation personally before implementation, the way she'd appear at his office unannounced, claiming to be in the neighborhood, asking detailed questions about processes that didn't seem relevant to operational efficiency. "She's very hands-on," Ricky told his small team after one such visit. "That's good. Shows they're invested in the outcomes." His lead consultant, a sharp woman named Diana, gave him a skeptical look. "She's micromanaging. That's different from invested. It's a major client. We need to accommodate their style." "Their style involves their COO personally reviewing timesheets. That's not normal, Ricky." But Ricky dismissed the concerns. The money was good. The work was steady. If Marcy Day wanted to be involved in every detail, that was her prerogative. Then came the client dinners. The first one seemed innocent enough. Quarterly business review, casual setting, relationship building. Ricky brought his team. Marcy attended alone, her assistant having cancelled at the last minute. The conversation was professional but oddly personal. She asked about his background, his history, how he'd gotten into consulting. "Everyone's path is different," she'd said, studying him over her wine glass. "Some people know what they want from the beginning. Others stumble around until they find their purpose." "Which were you?" "Stumbler, definitely. Took me years to figure out what I was good at." "And what are you good at, Ricky?" The way she said his first name made something uncomfortable twist in his stomach. Problem solving, seeing inefficiencies others miss. "Interesting. I would have guessed you were good at running." "Running? From problems? You have that look. Like someone who spent a lot of time looking over his shoulder." Diana had jumped in then, steering the conversation to safer ground. But the comment lingered in Ricky's mind like smoke. The second dinner was smaller. Just Ricky and Marcy. She'd insisted, said there were sensitive topics to discuss that required confidentiality. They met at an upscale restaurant, the kind where the prices weren't on the menu and everyone spoke in hushed tones. "Tell me about your wife," Marcy had said after they ordered. "Lauren? She's great, supportive, handles everything at home while I'm building the business." "That's convenient for you." "I didn't mean it like that." "How did you mean it?" Ricky shifted uncomfortably. "Just that I'm lucky to have a partner who understands the demands of entrepreneurship." "Lucky?" Marcy smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Is that what you call it when someone else carries the weight while you chase your dreams? That's not fair. I'm working my ass off for my family." "Are you? Or are you working your ass off for yourself and telling yourself it's for them?" The accusation stung. Because it hit too close to truth Ricky didn't want to examine. Lauren had been saying similar things lately. That he was never home. That the kids barely knew him. That his obsession with the business was destroying their family. "Why do you care about my personal life?" Ricky asked bluntly. Marcy leaned back, expression unreadable. "I don't, but I care about the stability of our partners. A man with a crumbling marriage is a distraction. Distractions lead to mistakes. Mistakes cost money. My marriage isn't crumbling." "If you say so." That night, Lauren had been waiting up when he got home after midnight. "Where were you?" "Client dinner. I texted you." "With Marseille Day. Again. That's the third time this month. She's the COO of our biggest client. Of course I'm meeting with her regularly." Lauren held up her phone, showing him a photo someone had tagged them in on social media. Him and Marseille at the restaurant, leaning close over the table, her laughing at something he'd said. Out of context, it looked intimate. "This is what our friends are seeing. Do you understand how this looks? It looks like a business dinner. It looks like you're having an affair." "That's insane. We were discussing operational frameworks." "Were you? Because she's touching your arm in this photo." Ricky grabbed the phone, zoomed in. Marseille's hand was indeed on his forearm, barely visible. He didn't even remember it happening. "It was nothing, a gesture while making a point." "Then why are you having intimate dinners with her instead of group meetings?" "Because that's how she prefers to work." "Lauren, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Or am I watching my husband spend more time with another woman than with his own family?" The fight had escalated from there. Accusations and defenses, Lauren's insecurities meeting Ricky's resentments. It ended with him sleeping in the guest room and her crying behind their locked bedroom door. Work the next morning brought a new surprise, an invitation to the annual Reed Industries charity gala. Black tie, spouses encouraged. "You're bringing Lauren," Diana said firmly when she saw the invitation. "Not optional." "I know." "Do you? Because you've been acting weird about the Reed account, like you're afraid to set boundaries with Marseille Day." "I'm not afraid. I'm being professional." Professional doesn't mean letting a client manipulate you into sketchy situations. "She's not manipulating me." Diana gave him a long look. "Then why do you sound like you're trying to convince yourself?" The gala was held at a museum, the kind of venue where the art was priceless and the guest list was equally curated. Lauren wore a dress that cost more than their mortgage payment, courtesy of her father's credit card. She was determined to prove something, to herself, to Ricky, to whatever woman she imagined was threatening her marriage. "Remember," she said as they entered, "we're a united front, successful couple, happy family. Don't embarrass me." The venue was stunning. Vaulted ceilings, champagne fountains, string quartet playing classical arrangements. Ricky recognized executives from Reed Industries scattered throughout the crowd, all looking perfectly at ease in this world of wealth and power. Then he saw Marseille. She stood near the main staircase, wearing a deep emerald gown that looked like it had been designed specifically for her. Her hair was different, down instead of pulled back, framing her face in a way that made her look younger, softer, more approachable. And beside her stood a man who could only be Peter Reed. Tall, silver hair, the kind of presence that made rooms rearrange themselves around him. He had his hand on the small of Marseille's back, casual possession, comfortable intimacy, and beside them, holding Marseille's hand, was a little boy in a tiny suit. The sight stopped Ricky cold. "That's her?" Lauren whispered. "That's the woman you've been having cozy dinners with?" "We haven't been." "She's gorgeous, and married to Peter Reed, and she still needs to have private dinners with my husband." Before Ricky could respond, Marseille looked up and met his eyes across the room. She smiled, warm, genuine, completely different from the cool professional he'd been meeting with for months. Then she bent down to say something to the little boy, who nodded and ran off toward where other children were gathering near a designated play area. Peter Reed saw them watching and said something to Marseille. She nodded, took his arm, and they began walking over. "Remember," Lauren hissed, "United Front." "Mr. Smith." Peter Reed's handshake was firm, his smile polite but assessing. "Good to finally meet you in person. Marseille speaks highly of your work." "Thank you, sir. This is my wife, Lauren." "Mrs. Smith." Peter shook her hand as well, then turned to Marseille. "Darling, I think you know Mr. Smith from his consulting work." "Of course." Marseille extended her hand to Ricky first, then to Lauren. "Mrs. Smith, lovely to meet you. Your husband has been invaluable to our operations team." Up close, Lauren's suspicion was visible in every tense line of her body. How nice. He's certainly been spending a lot of time with Reed Industries lately. Has he? Well, that's what good partnerships require. Commitment, dedication, actually showing up when it matters. There was something in the way she said it. Something Lauren wouldn't catch, but that made Ricky's skin prickle with unidentifiable unease. "Your son is adorable," Lauren said, nodding toward where the little boy was playing. "How old?" "4. His name is Prince. He's the light of our lives." Marsai's whole demeanor changed when she spoke about her child, softened, warmed, became something real instead of the calculated professional Ricky knew from meetings. 4 is such a wonderful age, Lauren said, her voice tight. "Our daughter just turned 4 as well. It's amazing how fast they grow." "It is." Marsai's eyes flickered to Ricky for just a moment. "You must treasure every moment. Children need their fathers present, not just providing. Wouldn't you agree, Mr. Smith?" "Absolutely," Ricky managed. "Of course, some men understand that better than others." Marsai sipped her champagne. "Some men think showing up with money is the same as showing up with presents." Lauren's hand tightened on Ricky's arm. "My husband is very present." "I'm sure he is, now anyway." Marsai smiled that unreadable smile. "Peter, darling, I think I see the mayor. We should say hello." They drifted away, leaving Ricky and Lauren standing in their wake like survivors of a subtle hurricane. "What the hell was that?" Lauren demanded. "I don't know." "She was insulting you, right to your face, and you just stood there." "She wasn't insulting me." "Then what was all that about showing up with presents? About men understanding what children need? She was implying you're a bad father. She doesn't even know me. Doesn't she? You've been having cozy little dinners for months. Maybe she knows you better than you think." Before Ricky could respond, Lauren stalked toward the bathroom, leaving him alone in a crowd of people he didn't know, feeling like he'd just failed a test he didn't realize he was taking. Later, in the bathroom, Lauren found herself washing her hands next to Marsai Day. "Your husband seems tense," Marsai said casually, refreshing her lipstick. "He's under a lot of pressure. Building a business is stressful." "I'm sure, especially when that business depends entirely on one client's goodwill." Lauren turned to face her directly. "What do you want from him?" "Want from him?" Marsai's expression was innocent. "I don't want anything. Reed Industries hired his firm to provide a service. That's the extent of our relationship." "Then why all the private meetings, the personal questions, the late-night dinners?" "Mrs. Smith, are you accusing me of something?" "I'm saying that my husband and I have a family, 2 children, a life, and I don't appreciate another woman inserting herself into that." Marsai's smile was sharp as broken glass. "I assure you, Mrs. Smith, your husband and I have unfinished business, but not the kind you're imagining." "What does that mean?" "It means you should worry less about me and more about the man you married. Ask yourself why he's never mentioned me before, why he never told you we knew each other." "You didn't know each other before the contract, didn't we?" Marsai capped her lipstick with a decisive click. "You should ask him about that. Really ask. See if he remembers. The past has a way of catching up to people who think they've outrun it." She walked out, leaving Lauren staring at her own reflection, feeling like the ground beneath her marriage had just shifted in ways she couldn't yet understand. Outside, Ricky watched Marsai return to her husband and son, watched her laugh at something Peter said, watched her scoop up Prince and kiss his forehead with obvious adoration. And something about her profile, the way she moved, the cadence of her voice, something tugged at a memory he couldn't quite reach, like a ghost of something he'd forgotten or chosen not to remember. Chapter 5. The Mirror Cracks. The email arrived at 3 in the morning. "Mr. Smith, we need to discuss what you left behind, the life you destroyed without looking back." Ricky woke to his phone buzzing insistently on the nightstand. Lauren was asleep beside him, the truce from their latest fight still fragile. He grabbed the phone, squinting at the bright screen in the darkness. The sender was anonymous, a string of random characters that meant nothing, but the subject line made his blood run cold. "Do you remember her?" His finger hovered over the delete button. Then, against his better judgment, he opened it. Inside was a single photograph, him and a woman years ago, laughing at some restaurant he vaguely recognized. Her face was turned toward him with an expression that made his chest tighten. Open, trusting, completely unguarded. His arm was around her shoulders, pulling her close. He didn't remember the photo being taken. Couldn't remember the restaurant. Struggled to remember the woman's face clearly, though something about her felt familiar in a way that made him nauseous. There was no message, just the photo. Ricky deleted the email with shaking hands, blocked the sender, tried to convince himself it was spam, some scam, nothing that mattered. But sleep wouldn't come. He lay in the darkness, trying to place that photo in his memory. How many years ago? 5, 6, before Lauren, obviously, before the kids, before Summit Consulting Solutions, back when he was someone else, someone younger and more reckless and less afraid, back when he'd made choices he didn't like to think about. The next email arrived during his morning meeting with Diana and their team. His phone buzzed silently in his pocket. He ignored it, focused on the quarterly projections they were reviewing. But it buzzed again and again, 4 times in 10 minutes. "You need to get that?" Diana asked. "It's nothing." But when the meeting ended, he checked. 4 different anonymous senders, 4 different photos, all from that same period of his life. Him at a concert, him at someone's birthday party, him and that same woman, always close, always looking like they belonged together. The final email had a message. "Did you think disappearing would erase what you did?" Ricky's hands were shaking so badly he nearly dropped his phone. Who was sending these? What did they want? Was this blackmail, extortion, some kind of revenge from a past he deliberately left behind? He tried to remember that woman's name, struggled to pull details from memory. They dated, that much was clear from the photos. But when? How long? How had it ended? The memories were fragmentary, uncomfortable, like trying to recall a dream that left you feeling guilty without knowing why. He'd ghosted someone years ago, just walked away without explanation because the relationship was getting too serious and he wasn't ready. It happened. People did it. It wasn't great, but it wasn't criminal, was it? At lunch, another email. This one contained no photo, just an address, a cheap apartment complex on the edge of the city, and a date from 6 years ago. Ricky stared at the address until the letters stopped making sense. That night, he came home to find Lauren going through his laptop. She looked up as he entered, her expression a mixture of fury and vindication. "Who is she?" "Who's who?" "Don't lie to me. I found the photos in your deleted folder, you and some woman, looking very cozy." "I deleted those. How did you—" "I recovered them. Wanted to see what you were hiding." She turned the laptop screen toward him. The photos filled the display, evidence of a relationship he'd tried to forget. "So who is she? An ex? Someone you cheated with?" "No. God, no. It was years ago. Before us. Before everything." "Then why were they in your deleted folder today? Why are you looking at photos of your ex?" "I'm not. Someone sent them to me. Anonymous emails. I don't know who or why." Lauren's laugh was bitter. "Someone is sending you romantic photos of yourself and you expect me to believe you don't know who?" "It's the truth. I deleted them immediately. After looking at them, after saving them to your hard drive first. They downloaded automatically. I didn't—" "Is it her? Is Marseille Day your ex? Is that why she's so interested in you?" The accusation was so unexpected that Ricky actually laughed. "No, absolutely not. I've never met Marseille before the Reed contract." "You're sure? You look pretty cozy in these photos. Maybe she's just changed her hair, lost some weight, got a new name." "Lauren, you're being paranoid." "Am I? Or am I the only one seeing what's right in front of us?" This woman appears out of nowhere, insists on private meetings with you, makes cryptic comments about your past, and now someone is sending you photos of an ex you conveniently can't remember. That's not paranoia. That's a pattern. Ricky grabbed the laptop, studied the photos more carefully, tried to imagine that woman with different hair, professional clothes, the cool confidence of a corporate executive. Could it be? No. Impossible. The woman in these photos was years younger, softer, nothing like the controlled, precise woman he'd been working with for months, but something nagged at him, some uncomfortable recognition hovering just out of reach. "I'm going to figure out who's sending these," he said. "Then we'll know for sure it's nothing. You do that. While you're at it, maybe figure out why your past is suddenly so interested in your present." The emails continued. Every day, sometimes multiple times, more photos, more locations, more fragments of a life he'd deliberately left behind. And then came the really disturbing one. It was a screenshot of a missing person report, filed 6 years ago, a woman reporting her boyfriend missing. The name had been redacted, but the details were specific enough to make Ricky's stomach turn. The dates matched. The description matched. The desperation in the language made him feel things he didn't want to feel. Had she filed a missing person report? Had she actually thought something happened to him? He'd just moved away, started over. It wasn't that dramatic. Was it? Another email. "You didn't just leave. You erased yourself, changed jobs, changed cities, changed phone numbers, made sure she could never find you. Why?" Ricky couldn't remember why. That was the most disturbing part. He remembered feeling trapped, feeling like the relationship was moving too fast, feeling like he needed to escape before he got stuck in something he didn't want. So he'd left, cleanly, completely, started fresh somewhere else. It seemed rational at the time, self-preservation, protecting himself from a commitment he wasn't ready for. Now reading these emails, seeing these photos, it felt like something else. It felt like cruelty. The final email of the week contained no photos, just a question. What if she never forgot? What if she spent years rebuilding herself? What if she's been waiting for you to walk back into her life so she could return the favor? Ricky's phone slipped from his hands, clattered on his desk. Diana looked up from across the office. "You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." "I'm fine." But he wasn't fine. He was starting to see patterns. The way Marseille Day asked about his past. The way she studied him during meetings. The pointed comments about commitment and abandonment. The cold smile that never reached her eyes. It couldn't be. The woman in these photos was someone else. Someone from a different life. Someone he'd left behind. Except people didn't stay behind. They moved forward. They changed. They evolved. And sometimes they remembered. That night, Ricky sat in his car outside his office, unable to make himself drive home. He pulled up Reed Industries' website on his phone, clicked on the executive leadership page, found Marseille Day's professional photo, stared at it until his vision blurred. Then he pulled up one of the photos from the anonymous emails, held them side by side. Different hair, different style, different expression, but the eyes were the same. And suddenly, like a dam breaking, the memories flooded back. Her name, her laugh, the way she looked at him like he was everything. The promises he'd made, the future they'd planned. The morning he woke up and decided he couldn't do it anymore and just left. Blocked her number, quit his job, moved 2 states away, started over like she'd never existed. He'd told himself it was kinder than dragging it out, cleaner than a messy breakup, easier for both of them. Now, staring at these photos, he realized it hadn't been kind or clean or easy. It had been cowardice, and the woman he'd destroyed was now the woman who controlled his entire professional life. Ricky's phone rang, unknown number. He almost didn't answer. "Mr. Smith," Marseille Day's voice, cool and professional. "I hope I'm not disturbing you. I wanted to discuss expanding your contract with Reed Industries." "Expanding?" "We're pleased with your work. Peter and I have been discussing bringing you on for additional projects. Larger scope, longer commitment, more revenue for your firm." It should have been good news. Great news. life-changing news. Instead, it felt like a trap closing around his throat. That's wonderful, thank you. We'll need you to sign some additional agreements, longer-term commitments, exclusivity clauses. Nothing unusual, just protecting both parties' interests. Of course. I'll have my assistant send over the paperwork. Oh, and Mr. Smith? Yes? Make sure you read everything carefully before you sign. You should always know exactly what you're agreeing to, what you're committing to, what it will cost you to walk away. The line went dead. Ricky sat in his car in the parking lot as the sun set and the shadows lengthened, and finally understood that he wasn't being courted. He was being hunted, and the hunter had been someone he'd known all along, wearing a face he'd chosen not to remember. Chapter 6. The Investment. Peter Reed made Ricky Smith an offer he couldn't refuse. A personal investment in his consulting firm, half the company for millions in capital, and with his signature, Ricky sealed his own fate without understanding the cage he was entering. The meeting was held in Peter Reed's personal office, a space that radiated power through its careful understatement, leather furniture worn to perfect comfort, artwork that was clearly valuable but not ostentatious, windows that framed Manhattan like a painting designed specifically for this room. Ricky had been summoned, that was the only word for it. Not invited, not asked, summoned, with a request that he come alone. Lauren had insisted on coming anyway, waited in the lobby downstairs, texting him every 10 minutes demanding updates. Her paranoia about Marseille Day had escalated into full-blown obsession. She'd hired someone to dig into Marseille's background, found nothing before her tenure at Reed Industries, which only made her more suspicious. Mr. Smith. Peter Reed stood as Ricky entered, gesturing to one of the leather chairs. Thank you for coming. Coffee? No, thank you. Peter poured himself a cup anyway, the ritual giving him time to assess his guest. Ricky felt like a specimen under a microscope. I'll be direct, Peter said, settling into his chair. Your work with Reed Industries has been exemplary, beyond our expectations. We'd like to deepen our relationship. I'm glad to hear that. The expanded contract proposal. I'm not talking about a contract expansion. I'm talking about an investment, personal capital, direct partnership. Ricky's mouth went dry. I'm not sure I understand. Your company has potential, strong methodology, growing reputation, but you're undercapitalized, limited resources, one major client away from instability. We want to change that. Peter pulled out a folder, slid it across the desk. Inside was a term sheet that made Ricky's vision blur. The number was staggering. More money than Summit Consulting Solutions would generate in years of normal operation. Enough to hire real staff, rent proper office space, stop living one missed payment away from collapse. This is... Ricky couldn't find words. Life-changing, Peter supplied. I know. Take a moment. Ricky scanned the documents. The terms seemed almost too generous. Investment for equity. Operational control would remain his. Reed Industries would become a preferred client, but not exclusive. It looked like the answer to every prayer he'd whispered in the darkness when the bills piled up and Lauren's disappointment felt like drowning. Why? Ricky asked finally. Why would you invest this much in my small consulting firm? Peter smiled slightly. Because I invest in people, not just businesses. And I see something in you, Mr. Smith. Hunger, drive, the willingness to do whatever it takes to succeed. Those qualities are rare. With respect, sir, there are hundreds of consulting firms you could invest in, firms with better track records and more resources. True, but those firms don't have what you have. Which is? Desperation. Peter said the word without judgment. You're not building a company because you want to. You're building it because you have to, because failure isn't an option, because your entire identity is wrapped up in proving you're not the man everyone thinks you are. That kind of motivation is more valuable than experience. The assessment was so accurate it felt like violence. I see I've struck a nerve, Peter continued. Good. That means you understand what I'm offering isn't just money, it's validation, proof that you're not a failure, that your choices weren't mistakes. that you can build something worthwhile despite your past. You know about my past. I know you've made choices you regret. I know you've left things unfinished. I know you're trying to rebuild yourself into someone you can respect. Peter leaned forward. I also know you're not unique in that. Everyone has things they wish they'd handled differently. The question is whether you learn from those mistakes or repeat them. Ricky thought about the anonymous emails, the photos, the growing certainty that Marseille was someone from his past he'd tried to forget. If I take this investment, what do you expect from me? Loyalty, commitment, excellence, the same things I expect from everyone I partner with. And if I walk away? From the investment? Nothing. Your choice. From Reed Industries entirely. Peter's smile didn't reach his eyes. That would be disappointing. We've invested considerable time in this relationship. Walking away now would suggest poor judgment on your part. The threat was subtle but unmistakable. Refuse the investment and face consequences. Lose the contract. Watch the company collapse. Prove everyone right who said he was a failure. I need to discuss this with my wife. Of course. But understand that this offer expires soon. Opportunity doesn't wait for consensus. Ricky left the office feeling like he'd been in a fight he hadn't realized he was having. Lauren was in the lobby pacing. Well, he offered to invest millions, half the company. Lauren's eyes went wide. That's incredible. That changes everything. Does it? What do you mean? This is what we've been waiting for. Financial security, a real future. Ricky showed her the term sheet. She read it, her expression transforming from suspicion to excitement. My father will have to admit he was wrong about you. This is a major validation. Why would Peter Reed invest this much in a struggling consulting firm? Because you're brilliant, because you've proven yourself, because sometimes people recognize talent and want to support it. Or because there's another reason we're not seeing. Lauren's excitement dimmed. You think this is about her, about Marcy Day. I think something isn't right. The timing, the generosity, the way Peter talks about knowing my past. So turn it down. If it makes you paranoid, refuse the money. And watch the company fail. Watch everything I've built collapse. Prove your father right. Lauren was quiet for a long moment. You have to decide what you're willing to risk. The known danger of staying small, or the unknown danger of accepting help from people you don't fully trust. That night, Ricky couldn't sleep. He went through the term sheet again, looking for traps. The language seemed straightforward. Standard equity terms. Reasonable oversight expectations. Nothing that screamed danger, except his gut wouldn't stop screaming. He pulled up Marcy Day's profile again, studied her face. Tried to reconcile the powerful executive with the woman from those photos, wondered if he was seeing patterns that didn't exist or ignoring obvious truth. His phone buzzed. Email from anonymous sender. When you sign, you'll belong to her. Everything you are, everything you've built, all of it will be hers to destroy, and you'll have given her permission. Ricky deleted it immediately, but the words haunted him. The signing dinner was held at the same upscale restaurant where he'd first met alone with Marcy. Peter and Marcy attended. Lauren came, determined to establish her presence. Ricky signed the papers while his wife watched, committing Summit Consulting Solutions to a partnership that felt increasingly like a prison sentence. Congratulations, Peter said, shaking his hand firmly. You've made an excellent choice. Marcy raised her champagne glass. To new partnerships and old accounts coming due. The toast made no sense. Lauren frowned. Peter smiled. Ricky felt his stomach clench. After dinner, Marcy pulled him aside while Peter and Lauren were discussing real estate. You look familiar, she said quietly. Did we know each other before? The question he'd been dreading. Ricky studied her face, trying to decide if he was imagining the recognition in her eyes. I don't think so. I'd remember someone like you. Would you? She tilted her head slightly. I wonder. You seem like someone who forgets conveniently, who edits his own history to make himself feel better about the choices he's made. I don't know what you mean. Don't you? Think harder, Ricky. Think about who you used to be, before you became this version, before you learned to smile and pretend and convince yourself that walking away from problems makes them disappear. His heart was pounding. If you have something to say to me, say it clearly. Marseille smiled, that cold, sharp smile he'd come to dread. Yes, you really should have. She walked away, leaving him standing alone with the certainty that he'd just sold half his company to someone who was playing a game he didn't understand. And with Peter Reed's investment, he was now completely dependent on their goodwill for his survival. The cage had closed, he'd locked himself inside, and somewhere in the distance, he could hear someone laughing. Chapter 7. The Documentary. When the documentary crew asked to profile modern power couples and featured Peter and Marseille Reed, Lauren Smith watched the promotional interview and finally understood why her husband had been having nightmares that made him wake up screaming. The documentary was called Built from Nothing: Love and Empire in Modern America. It profiled 5 couples who'd built successful businesses together, overcome adversity, created lives of impact and meaning. Peter and Marseille Reed were featured as the closing segment, the ultimate success story. Lauren watched it alone in their bedroom while Ricky worked late at the office again. The kids were asleep. The house was quiet. She'd poured herself wine, expecting another boring corporate puff piece. Instead, she watched her marriage disintegrate in real time. The documentary opened with Peter and Marseille in their penthouse, Prince playing in the background. They looked perfect, powerful, attractive, completely in sync. The narrator described their empire, their philanthropy, their reputation. Then Marseille began talking about her past. "I wasn't always this person," she said, looking directly at the camera. "Years ago I was someone else entirely, young, naive, in love with someone who I thought loved me back." Peter took her hand as she spoke. Supportive, present, everything a partner should be. "What happened?" the interviewer asked gently. "He left, without explanation, without warning. Just disappeared one day like I'd never existed, like everything we'd built together meant nothing." Lauren's wine glass froze halfway to her lips. "It wasn't a breakup, it was an erasure. He blocked me, quit his job, moved away. When I tried to find him, to understand what I'd done wrong, he had the police tell me to stop contacting him." The timeline matched. The details matched. Lauren's hands started shaking. "That must have been devastating," the interviewer said. "It destroyed me." Marseille's voice was steady, but something flickered in her eyes. "I lost everything, my job, my apartment, my sense of reality. I spent months on a friend's couch, barely functional, trying to understand how someone could do that to another person." "How did you recover?" "I almost didn't, but eventually rage became fuel. I realized I had 2 choices: let his abandonment define me forever, or use it to build something he could never touch. So I rebuilt myself, piece by piece, from absolute nothing." Peter squeezed her hand and became extraordinary in the process. "I became what I needed to survive: strong, strategic, unwilling to ever let anyone make me feel powerless again." The interviewer leaned forward. "Do you ever think about him? The man who left?" Marseille smiled, cold, precise. "Sometimes. I wonder if he thinks about me. If he remembers what he did. If he understands the consequences of treating people like they're disposable." "Would you want to see him again?" "Yes. I'd want to see his face when he realizes what he gave up, what he destroyed, what I became despite his cruelty." Lauren's phone fell from her hand. The documentary continued. Peter described meeting Marseille at a startup, seeing her brilliance and resilience, falling in love with someone who understood power because she'd clawed her way to it. They showed Prince, talked about building a family, creating a life based on mutual respect. But Lauren couldn't hear any of it over the roaring in her ears. She opened her laptop with shaking hands, pulled up the photos she'd found on Ricky's computer. The woman in those images, younger, softer, unguarded, looked different from Marseille Day. But not that different. Lauren zoomed in on the face, compared it to screenshots from the documentary. The bone structure was the same, the eyes identical, the way she tilted her head when listening, exactly the same gesture. It was her. Marseille Day was Ricky's ex, the woman he'd ghosted years ago, the woman whose life he'd destroyed, and she'd orchestrated everything, the contract, the investment, the dinners, the games. To what? Get revenge? Make him pay? Destroy their family? Lauren grabbed her phone, called Ricky. No answer. Called again, 5 times before he finally picked up. "I'm in a meeting, Lauren." "What? She's your ex, Marseille Day. She's the woman from the photos." Silence, long enough that Lauren knew she was right. "That's insane," Ricky said finally, but his voice was hollow. "How could you possibly?" "There's a documentary. She talks about you, about how you abandoned her, about how it destroyed her. It aired tonight, nationally, and you had no idea." "Lauren, come home, right now. We need to figure out what we're going to do because our entire life is built on a relationship with a woman whose life you destroyed, and she's been playing us this whole time." She hung up, watched the rest of the documentary in stunned silence. By the end, she understood exactly how calculated everything had been. The contract that saved them, the investment that trapped them, the relationship that made them dependent, all of it orchestrated by someone who'd been waiting years for exactly this moment. Ricky came home an hour later. He looked grey, defeated. Lauren showed him the documentary without a word. He watched his past come alive on screen, watched the woman he'd erased rebuild herself into someone extraordinary, watched her describe his cruelty in calm, measured words that made it sound even worse than if she'd screamed. When it ended, he just sat there. "Is it her?" Lauren asked quietly. "Yes." "Did you know?" "Not at first. Maybe not until recently. I don't know. The memories are foggy. I didn't want to remember." "What did you do to her?" "What she said, I left completely. I was young and scared and I just ran. And now she's been playing us for months. The contract, the investment, all of it was revenge." "I don't know. Maybe. Probably." Lauren's laugh was bitter. "You don't know? She just went on national television and described what you did to her. She called you cruel. She said you made her feel powerless, and you don't know if this is revenge? What do you want me to say?" "I want you to fix this. She's Peter Reed's wife. We're in business with them. Half your company is theirs. Our entire financial future depends on their goodwill. So you need to fix this, now." "How? What am I supposed to do?" "I don't know. Apologize, explain, grovel, whatever it takes to make her let this go." Ricky's phone started buzzing. Text messages flooding in, colleagues who'd seen the documentary, clients asking uncomfortable questions, Diana demanding to know what the hell was happening, and one text from an unknown number. "Now everyone knows what you are. How does it feel?" The next morning, everything exploded. A journalist published an article. "When Corporate America Hires Its Own Ghosts, a Cautionary Tale." It detailed Ricky's relationship with Marseille, the suspicious timing of his contract with Reed Industries, the oddity of Peter Reed investing heavily in his ex-wife's abandoner's company. The article raised questions about ethics, about abuse of corporate power, about whether Marseille Day was a powerful woman getting justified revenge or a scorned woman using her position inappropriately. The internet picked it up. Social media divided into camps. Some people praised Marseille for long-game revenge. Others accused her of professional misconduct. Everyone had an opinion about Ricky. Most of those opinions were brutal, his inbox filled with hate mail. People who'd seen the documentary, read the article, decided he represented everything wrong with men who treat women as disposable. They called him a coward, a ghost, a waste of space who deserved whatever was coming. Lauren's friends started calling, asking pointed questions. Her father left a voicemail demanding explanation. The private school where their kids attended sent a polite email suggesting it might be best if the children took some time at home while media attention settled. Summit Consulting Solutions' other clients started cancelling contracts. Nothing dramatic, just quiet exits. Apologetic emails about budget constraints. Sudden decisions to go in different directions. Within a week, Reed Industries was the only client left, and Ricky finally understood the trap completely. She'd made him dependent, given him just enough rope to hang himself, and now, with the whole world watching, she was letting him dangle while everyone debated whether he deserved to be cut down. He tried calling her. Her assistant said she was unavailable. He showed up at Reed Industries. Security wouldn't let him up. He sent emails that went unanswered. Finally, a response came. Brief, typed by her assistant but signed by Marseille. Mr. Smith, given recent media attention, we think it's best to pause active projects until the situation stabilizes. Your contract remains valid. The investment stands, but perhaps some distance would be appropriate while everyone processes this situation. We'll be in touch when circumstances change. Distance. What a generous word for abandonment. Ricky sat in his now empty office, the office he'd rented with Reed Capital, filled with equipment bought with Reed money, and understood that he'd been given everything just so it could be taken away. And the woman doing the taking was someone he'd treated exactly the same way years ago. Justice, it turned out, had an excellent memory, and sometimes it came dressed in Armani, smiling coldly while you drowned. Chapter 8. The Counter-Strike. Ricky Smith hired the most vicious attorney in New York and filed a lawsuit against Reed Industries for emotional distress and workplace harassment. It was the biggest mistake of his life, and the moment Marseille Day had been waiting for all along. The attorney's office smelled like leather and ambition. Maxwell Brennan had a reputation for destroying corporate defendants, extracting settlements that made headlines, turning workplace disputes into career-ending scandals. He listened to Ricky's story with the focused attention of a predator selecting prey. "This is good," Maxwell said when Ricky finished. "Very good. Powerful woman orchestrates professional relationship with ex she secretly harbors grudge against, uses corporate resources to manipulate him into dependency, destroys his reputation through calculated media exposure. The power imbalance alone makes this actionable. Can we win? Win? We can annihilate them. Reed Industries has unlimited money, but they're vulnerable to reputational damage. Public opinion will split on this. Some people will see justified revenge, but many will see abuse of corporate power. We frame you as the victim of a vindictive woman who weaponized her position. It's perfect." Lauren sat beside Ricky, her father's checkbook open on the table. The Westbrook family had closed ranks, horrified by the public scandal, but more horrified by the idea of their son-in-law being destroyed by some woman with a grudge. "How much will this cost?" Lauren's father asked. "Retainer is $200,000. Trial costs could run into millions. But when we win, Reed Industries will pay everything plus damages. I'm thinking 8 figures minimum." Ricky's stomach churned. 8 figures? Emotional distress, reputational damage, business losses, intentional infliction of emotional harm. We'll bury them in discovery, expose every email she sent, every meeting she orchestrated. By the time we're done, Marseille Day's career will be finished. It should have felt like justice. Instead, it felt like jumping off a cliff, hoping to learn to fly on the way down. But what choice did he have? His company was destroyed. His reputation was ruined. His only remaining client was the woman who'd engineered his downfall. Fight back or lie down and accept annihilation. "Do it," Ricky said. "File everything." Maxwell smiled like a shark scenting blood. "This is going to be fun." The lawsuit filed on a Monday morning. By Monday afternoon, every media outlet had the story. By Monday evening, Ricky was doing interviews, telling his side. "I made a mistake years ago," he said on camera, practiced words that Maxwell had coached into him. "A terrible mistake. I hurt someone I cared about. But what Marseille Day has done goes beyond personal revenge. She abused her corporate position to destroy my livelihood. That's not justice. That's vindictive harassment using company resources." The interviewer leaned forward. "Some people are saying you're just facing consequences for your actions." Consequences are one thing. Systematic destruction using corporate power is another. If the roles were reversed, if a powerful male executive targeted his ex like this, everyone would be outraged. There shouldn't be a double standard. It was manipulative, Calculated, designed to generate sympathy by positioning himself as the real victim, and it worked. Public opinion began shifting. Op-eds appeared defending him. Social media debates intensified. People who'd initially praised Marseille's long game started questioning whether she'd crossed ethical lines. Lauren gave interviews too, positioned as the innocent wife caught in the crossfire. Her father leveraged family connections to plant stories in business publications, questioning Reed Industries' corporate governance. "This isn't about a relationship gone wrong," one article read. "This is about whether executives can use company resources to pursue personal vendettas. If Marseille orchestrated this using Reed Industries' money and time, that's a serious breach of fiduciary duty." Ricky started to believe they might actually win. Then he received a call from Peter Reed. "Mr. Smith, I thought we should talk before this gets more destructive. I'm not withdrawing the lawsuit. I'm not asking you to. I'm calling to give you one chance to walk away before you discover exactly what you've walked into. Is that a threat? It's a courtesy. You've made serious accusations against my wife, accused her of misconduct, harassment, abuse of power. Those are significant claims. Claims that require proof. We'll get proof in discovery. Will you? Discovery is a dangerous thing, Mr. Smith. When you demand to see everything, you might find more than you bargained for. I'm not afraid of what discovery will reveal. You should be, because the moment your attorney files that motion, we'll file our own, and what we reveal will destroy more than your lawsuit." What's that supposed to mean? It means you should ask yourself what else you've forgotten. What other convenient gaps exist in your memory? What other people might remember the things you've chosen not to? The line went dead. Ricky told Maxwell about the call. The attorney's eyes lit up. "He's scared. They're trying to intimidate you before discovery reveals what they did. This is perfect. We press harder." They filed extensive discovery demands. Every email Marseille sent related to Summit Consulting Solutions, every internal memo discussing the contract, every communication about the investment, phone records, meeting schedules, documentation of every interaction. If she used company time and resources to pursue personal revenge, it'll be in these records, Maxwell said confidently, and when we prove it, Reed Industries board will have no choice but to settle. The response to their discovery demands came 2 weeks later, delivered by an entire legal team, boxes of documents, thousands of pages, meticulously organized, and with it, Reed Industries' own discovery demands. They wanted everything related to Ricky's previous business dealings, every contract, every client relationship, financial records going back a decade, communications with employees, tax returns, bank statements. "This is a fishing expedition," Maxwell protested. "No," the lead attorney for Reed Industries said calmly. "This is reciprocal discovery. You demanded to see how Ms. Day conducted business. We're entitled to see how Mr. Smith conducts his. Fair is fair." It took 2 days to sort through the documents Reed Industries provided. Most of it was routine corporate material, but buried in the middle was something that made Maxwell go pale. "Tell me about the Westbrook family's initial investment in your company," he said quietly. "Lauren's father gave us startup capital. Wedding gift. Why?" "Because according to these documents, that capital came with conditions. Very specific conditions about how money could be spent. And according to these expense reports, you violated multiple terms." Ricky's stomach dropped. "What are you talking about?" Maxwell spread out bank statements, expense reports, transfer records. "You moved money between personal and business accounts in ways that violated your operating agreement. You claimed business expenses that were clearly personal. You hid revenue from investors. This isn't creative accounting, Ricky. This is fraud." "I didn't." "You did. It's all documented. Every transfer, every falsified report, every lie you told about where money was going." Maxwell stood up, pacing. "Reed Industries didn't just give us what we asked for. They gave us evidence that destroys your credibility completely." "How did they even get these records?" Because Peter Reed is an investor in your company, he has legal access to all financial documents, documents you apparently forgot existed when you decided to sue them. The room tilted. What does this mean? It means if we proceed to trial, Reed Industries will present this evidence. They'll argue you're a fraud who manipulates everyone around you, including them, including your wife's family. The jury will hate you, the judge will hate you, and instead of winning 8 figures, you'll be lucky to avoid criminal charges. Can we withdraw the lawsuit? We can, but the damage is done. They know what we found. If they want to pursue it, they can report this to authorities independently. Ricky's phone buzzed. Text from Lauren. My father just received documents from Reed Industries attorneys. He's on his way to your office. He's furious. Everything was collapsing faster than Ricky could process. The lawsuit that was supposed to save him had instead exposed every corner-cutting choice, every financial manipulation, every lie he'd told to keep things afloat. Marseille Day hadn't been trying to hide her revenge. She'd been waiting for him to make exactly this move so she could reveal everything. That night, Lauren's father arrived with his own attorneys. The conversation was brutal. Accusations of fraud, threats of civil suits from the Westbrook family, demands that Ricky sign over control of Summit Consulting Solutions to pay back misappropriated funds. You didn't just steal from Reed Industries, Lauren's father said coldly. You stole from us, from my daughter, from your own family, using my money to fund whatever personal expenses you wanted while pretending it was business costs. I was keeping the company alive. You were a thief, a con artist, and now everyone will know it. By the time they left, Ricky had signed documents giving the Westbrook family controlling interest in Summit Consulting Solutions, pending the outcome of their own investigation into his financial misconduct. Lauren filed for divorce that same night. Her attorney hand-delivered the papers along with a restraining order, keeping Ricky away from their children until the fraud investigation concluded. The lawsuit against Reed Industries collapsed. Maxwell withdrew as counsel, citing irreconcilable differences with his client. The media, which had been gradually swinging in Ricky's favor, now turned on him with renewed viciousness. Consultant sues over revenge gets exposed as fraud, read the headlines. Karma's not always a woman. Sometimes it's just your own stupidity. Man who ghosted ex discovers she documented everything. Ricky's counter-strike hadn't just failed. It had exposed him completely. And somewhere in Manhattan, in a penthouse overlooking the city, Marseille Day received the news and smiled, because this was what she'd been planning all along. Not quick destruction, complete unraveling, letting him destroy himself, while she simply watched and documented every moment. Chapter 9. The Empire's Evidence. Marseille Day. Reed walked into the deposition with 3 bankers' boxes of evidence and a smile that made Ricky Smith's new attorney go pale, because what she revealed wasn't just documentation of his fraud. It was a masterclass in dismantling someone who thought he could hide from his past. The deposition room was smaller than Ricky expected. Corporate. Neutral. A court reporter sat silently in the corner. Marcier entered last, flanked by 2 attorneys, but carrying the boxes herself. She wore navy again, professional, untouchable. Her expression held nothing, no anger, no triumph, no emotion at all. Just cold, perfect control. Ricky's new attorney, a younger lawyer named Sarah who'd taken his case pro bono after Maxwell abandoned ship, tried to project confidence. Ms. Day, thank you for making time for this deposition. I know withdrawing the lawsuit against Reed Industries technically ends this matter, but my client has questions about whether I engineered his professional destruction using corporate resources, Marseille interrupted smoothly. Yes, I imagine he does. Shall we address that directly? Sarah blinked, thrown by the directness. Yes, that's exactly what we want to address. Perfect. Then let's start with these. Marseille opened the first box, pulled out a thick folder. This contains every email, memo, and document related to Summit Consulting Solutions' engagement with Reed Industries. You'll notice that every interaction was documented. Every meeting had agendas. Every decision had justification. Everything was by the book. She slid the folder across the table. Sarah opened it, began scanning. Ricky watched her expression change as she realized what she was seeing. "These are thorough," Sarah said carefully. "Professional," Marseille corrected. "Exactly what you'd expect from a COO managing a significant vendor relationship. Nothing personal, nothing vindictive, just standard corporate procedure." "But you knew who he was, from your past relationship." "I did. Eventually, after several meetings, I recognized him. But that recognition doesn't invalidate the business relationship. Reed Industries legitimately needed operational consulting. Summit Consulting provided adequate services. We paid them fairly. Where's the misconduct?" Sarah pulled out her notes. "But you orchestrated private meetings, personal dinners. You made him dependent on Reed Industries as his primary revenue source. I scheduled meetings necessary for the work. Dinners are standard client relationship management, and I didn't make his company dependent on us. His complete lack of other clients did that. None of that is actionable." Ricky finally spoke. "You destroyed my reputation, put me on display in that documentary." Marseille turned to him for the first time. Her eyes were empty. "I told my story, my truth, my experience. I never named you. The documentary never identified you. If people connected those dots, that's because the facts were obvious to anyone who knew us both. But I had every right to discuss my own life." "You knew it would ruin me. I knew it might have consequences. But the consequences of telling the truth aren't my responsibility. They're yours. You created this situation years ago when you decided my pain didn't matter." Sarah jumped in. "Ms. Day, my client admits he made mistakes in his past relationship with you, but what I've done is conduct business professionally while being honest about my personal history. If those two things intersected in ways that made him uncomfortable, perhaps he should have considered that possibility before abandoning someone so thoroughly she filed a missing person report." The room went silent. "I'm sorry," Sarah said. Marseille opened the second box. "This contains documentation from 6 years ago. The missing person report I filed when my boyfriend vanished without explanation. Police records showing they located him alive and well, deliberately avoiding me. Statements from mutual friends he lied to about our relationship. Text messages where he told people I was too clingy and he had to ghost her clean. Medical records from my therapist documenting the emotional trauma of his abandonment." She spread the documents across the table like playing cards. "This is who your client was. A man who destroyed someone who loved him, then lied about it, then forgot about it entirely because her pain was irrelevant to him." Ricky stared at the documents. His own words, preserved. His own cruelty, documented. Things he'd said casually to friends, never thinking they'd matter. "But none of this justifies," Sarah started. "Justifies what? Conducting business with him years later? Accepting his company's proposal for legitimate consulting work? Investing in his firm with standard terms? Or telling my own story publicly without naming him?" Marseille's voice was sharp as breaking glass. "What exactly did I do that was illegal? You made him think he was safe, let him rebuild, then destroyed him." "No. I let him think he was safe while documenting everything. There's a difference. Every contract he signed was legitimate. Every term was fair. Every interaction was appropriate. I didn't destroy him. I just stopped protecting him from himself." She opened the third box. "This contains the evidence that will end this conversation. Mr. Smith's own financial records, not the ones Reed Industries collected as an investor, though those were damning enough. These are the records he thought were hidden." Sarah's expression shifted to confusion. "How did you—" "Discovery is a powerful tool. Once your client filed his lawsuit, he opened his entire business to examination. We didn't just pull what we were entitled to as investors. We subpoenaed everything: bank records, tax returns, communications with employees and clients, and we found a pattern." Marseille pulled out spreadsheets marked with yellow highlights. He wasn't just misappropriating funds from his father-in-law's investment. He was hiding revenue from all his clients, including us, invoicing for work that was never done, charging for hours that were never worked, creating fake subcontractor expenses and pocketing the difference. Ricky's vision blurred. That's not. It is. And it's all documented. Email trails showing you instructing employees to falsify timesheets, bank transfers to shell companies you created, tax forms showing dramatically different income than what you actually generated. You weren't just a bad businessman, Mr. Smith. You were running a systematic fraud operation. Sarah was scanning the documents, her face growing more horrified with each page. These can't be admissible. They're completely admissible. Your client filed a lawsuit accusing Reed Industries of misconduct. We have every right to present evidence of his misconduct in response. This isn't revenge. This is self-defense. But the fraud predates the Reed Industries relationship, which makes it pattern evidence, shows his character, demonstrates that his accusations against us are projection. He's a fraud accusing others of impropriety. Marseille leaned forward. And here's the truly beautiful part. Because Peter Reed is an investor in Summit Consulting Solutions, we have a fiduciary duty to report this fraud, not to punish your client, to protect shareholders, which means we'll be referring these findings to the SEC and the IRS regardless of whether this lawsuit proceeds. The room seemed to shrink. Ricky couldn't breathe. However, Marseille continued, her voice softening slightly, we're not monsters. We're prepared to offer terms. Terms? Sarah asked cautiously. Mr. Smith signs over all equity in Summit Consulting Solutions to Reed Industries for $1. We assume all debts and liabilities. In exchange, we don't refer the fraud to authorities. He walks away with nothing but his freedom. That's extortion. That's a generous offer. The alternative is criminal prosecution, civil suits from every client he defrauded, bankruptcy and likely prison time. We're offering him an exit. Ricky found his voice. Why? If you have all this, why offer anything? Why not just destroy me completely? For the first time, real emotion flickered in Marseille's eyes. Because that's not who I am. You destroyed me and walked away like I was nothing. But I'm not you. I don't leave people in ruins without offering a way forward, even people who don't deserve it. This is mercy. This is more than you gave me. I'm giving you a choice. Take responsibility, face consequences, but keep your freedom and your ability to rebuild. That's more than you offered me when you vanished from my life without explanation. The deposition ended an hour later. Ricky signed the papers with hands that wouldn't stop shaking, signed away his company, his reputation, his credibility, everything he'd built, but avoided prison, avoided criminal charges, avoided absolute destruction. Outside, Sarah stopped him. I'm sorry, there was nothing I could do. The evidence was overwhelming. I know. What will you do now? Ricky looked up at the Reed Industries building, knowing Marseille was somewhere inside, probably already moving on to her next meeting, her next project. His complete destruction was just Tuesday morning business for her. I don't know, he said honestly. Figure out how to live with what I've done, I guess. Sarah left. Ricky stood on the Manhattan sidewalk for a long time, invisible among the crowds, finally understanding what he'd lost years ago when he threw away someone who would have built a life with him, and what he'd become in the years since. Someone who took shortcuts, lied to everyone, including himself, and convinced himself his survival mattered more than his integrity. Marseille Day had held up a mirror and forced him to see exactly who was looking back. Chapter 10. The Mercy He Never Gave. 3 months later, Ricky Smith stood outside Reed Industries headquarters in the rain, holding a letter he'd rewritten countless times, knowing Marseille Day had every right to refuse to see him, but hoping she might grant him the closure he'd never given her. The security guard recognized him. There was pity in his expression that hurt worse than contempt would have. Mr. Smith, you know I can't let you up without authorization. I know. Could you call Ms. Day's office? Tell her I'd like 5 minutes, just 5 minutes, then I'll leave and never come back. The guard hesitated, then picked up his phone. spoke quietly, listened. His eyebrows rose. She says she'll meet you in the lobby. 5 minutes. Ricky hadn't expected that. Part of him had hoped she'd refuse, save him from this final humiliation. But Marseille Day had never been predictable. He waited by the windows, watching rain streak the glass. The past months had been brutal. Divorce finalized. Kids in Lauren's custody with supervised visits only. Living in a studio apartment that smelled like mildew and someone else's cooking. Working at a car dealership, selling used vehicles to people who trusted him with their transportation decisions despite everything. The irony wasn't lost on him. He'd started therapy. Real therapy, not the crisis management he'd done before. Confronting what he'd done, why he'd done it. The pattern of running from discomfort, of choosing easy exits over hard conversations, of treating people like they were temporary obstacles instead of human beings with feelings that mattered. It was the hardest work he'd ever done. "Mr. Smith," he turned. Marseille stood in the lobby, dressed casually, jeans and a sweater, like she'd been working from home and came in just for this. No armor of executive wear. Just a woman who'd agreed to 5 minutes with someone who'd destroyed her. "Thank you for seeing me." "I almost didn't." "What do you want, Ricky?" Straight to it. No pretense. He appreciated that. To apologize, really apologize. Not the performative kind I tried before. I wrote it down because I didn't trust myself to say it right. He handed her the letter. She didn't open it. "You can say it to my face." "Okay." He took a breath. 6 years ago I destroyed you. Not because you did anything wrong, not because we weren't working, but because you were getting serious and I was scared, and instead of being honest about that, I ran. I didn't just end the relationship, I erased you, blocked you, lied to people about why we ended, made you feel like you were crazy for wanting answers. Marseille's expression didn't change. "Continue." "You filed a missing person report because I made myself disappear so completely that you thought something had happened to me. Do you understand how cruel that is? How much pain I caused? You were worried about my safety while I was just starting over somewhere else, not caring what you were going through. Is there a point to this? The point is that I knew. Deep down, I knew what I was doing was wrong. But I did it anyway because it was easier. Because your pain was less real to me than my discomfort. And that's unforgivable." "You're right. It is. I don't expect forgiveness. I just needed you to know that I finally understand. What you did, the contract, the investment, the exposure, it wasn't excessive. It was proportional. You showed me exactly what it feels like to have someone control your fate. To be dependent on someone who might destroy you. To wake up every day wondering when the other shoe will drop. And how did that feel? Terrifying. Helpless. Like drowning while everyone watches. He met her eyes. Like what I did to you felt. Marseille was quiet for a moment. "Do you know what the worst part was? Not the abandonment itself. It was the erasure. You didn't just leave. You made it so I couldn't even get closure. Couldn't understand what I'd done wrong. Couldn't learn or grow or move forward because I had no answers. Just silence. I know. Do you? Because even now you're asking me for something. 5 minutes of my time. Closure. Permission to feel better about yourself. You're still taking." The words hit like fists. "You're right. I am right. You destroyed me and disappeared. I rebuilt myself alone. You don't get to witness my healing. You don't get to be part of my story anymore. That's what you chose when you ghosted me." "Then why did you agree to see me?" "Because I needed to look you in the eye and tell you that I don't forgive you. That nothing you say today changes what you did. That you'll have to live with that forever." She paused. "But I also needed you to see that I'm not defined by what you did anymore. You were a chapter, a painful one, but just a chapter. My story is so much bigger than you." Ricky nodded slowly. "I see that. You're extraordinary. The company, your family, everything you built. You became everything I knew you could be. No, I became everything I needed to be to survive what you did. Don't congratulate yourself for seeing potential. You saw it and destroyed it anyway. Fair. Marseille opened the letter finally, read it in silence. When she finished, she folded it carefully and handed it back. Keep it, as a reminder of what you did and why it mattered. Maybe it'll help you not do it to someone else. Can I tell you one more thing? One thing, then I'm done. We lost a daughter. Marseille went very still. What? Not together. After you. I mean, with Lauren, a daughter. And when she was born, all I could think about was how I'd destroyed someone who might have been the mother of my children if I'd been brave enough to stay. How I chose running over building something real, and now I'm the father who barely sees his kids because I destroyed that relationship too. Why are you telling me this? Because karma isn't just about what happens to you, it's about what you become. I became exactly the kind of person I deserved to become, a fraud, a coward, a man his own children don't trust. You didn't do that to me, I did it to myself, you just made sure I saw it clearly. Marseille's expression softened for just a moment. I'm not glad you're suffering, I'm just glad you finally understand. I do. And I'm genuinely happy you found Peter, that you have Prince, that you built this incredible life. You deserved better than what I gave you. You deserve someone who stayed. I found him, someone who shows up, who doesn't run when things get hard, who chose me and keeps choosing me every single day. He's a lucky man. He's a good man. There's a difference. Through the lobby windows, Ricky saw a town car pull up. Peter Reed emerged, Prince bouncing beside him. They were laughing about something, completely comfortable together. Peter looked up, saw Marseille through the glass, and his whole face transformed with unmistakable love. That's my family, Marseille said quietly. That's what I built from the ruins you left. They're the reason I don't need revenge anymore. I already won. Peter and Prince entered the lobby. Prince saw his mother and ran to her immediately. She scooped him up, kissed his forehead, and everything about her changed. The cool executive disappeared, just a mother who adored her son. Peter approached more slowly, assessing Ricky with those calculating eyes. Mr. Smith, Mr. Reed, thank you for... Ricky gestured vaguely at everything. For not destroying me completely. I didn't do that for you. I did it for her, because she's better than both of us, and she asked me to show mercy you didn't deserve. I know. Peter took Marseille's hand. Ready to go home? Yes. She turned to Ricky one final time. I hope you build something honest next. Something that doesn't require lies or shortcuts or throwing other people away. You're capable of better. You just have to choose it. I'm trying. Good. Keep trying. Not for me, for yourself. Because living with who you became must be exhausting. They left together, Marseille, Peter and Prince, a complete family, happy and whole and entirely separate from anything Ricky had touched. He stood in that lobby for a long time after they left, holding his unread letter, feeling the weight of choices that couldn't be unmade. Eventually, he walked out into the rain, went back to his small apartment, made dinner for himself in the tiny kitchen, sat on his second-hand couch and opened the letter he'd written. It was honest, raw, everything he should have said years ago when he had the chance, but Marseille hadn't needed to read it. She'd moved past, needing anything from him at all. That night, scrolling through news on his phone, he saw an announcement. Marseille Reed promoted to global CEO of Reed Industries. The article included a photo, her and Peter at the announcement, Prince between them, all three of them beaming. The caption read, "Power couple expands empire together." Ricky saved the article, not out of bitterness, not out of regret, but as a reminder of the woman he'd failed to see when she was right in front of him, of the man he'd become when he chose easy exits over hard growth, of the life he could have built if he'd been brave enough to stay. He couldn't undo the past, couldn't earn forgiveness, couldn't rewrite history into something less shameful. But he could learn, change, become someone different than the person who'd caused so much pain. It wouldn't fix what he'd broken, but maybe it would prevent him from breaking anything else. And maybe, eventually, he'd become someone his children wouldn't be ashamed to know. That was the best revenge Marseille Day could have asked for. Not his destruction, but his forced evolution into someone who finally understood what he'd thrown away. She didn't need him destroyed. She needed him to live with the knowledge of what he'd lost. And every day he woke up and saw what she'd become, what she'd built without him because of surviving him, was a day he understood exactly what his cowardice had cost. Not just her, but himself. Because the greatest revenge wasn't making someone lose everything, it was making them understand what they'd already lost when they walked away. The end.